Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of my 12 Cylon challenge. I'm happy to say that the first Cylon for January is almost done. Just needs a few more tweaks, so we'll be talking about what I've done so far, what still needs to be done with this guy, and I'll give you a bit of a sneak peek at the upcoming robot for February. So let's begin. Before I dive into details, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's expressed their encouragement and support for me. It means a lot going in, and I know I haven't done that much yet, but when this challenge inevitably gets more difficult, it'll be nice knowing that I have this pool of positivity to draw from. So thank you guys for that. Also, thank you to everyone who's made suggestions for robots that I could potentially make. A lot of them are a little bit too complex for just 1 month, but I could potentially make simplified versions of them, so I'm not against doing that. At the moment, I only have plans for the next 3 or 4 months maybe, but after that I'm drawing a complete blank. So hey, if you have any ideas, like, your mind is the brush, the comments section is your canvas. Go nuts. So remember that last week I had all the components ready to make this robot, and I had the ultrasonic sensors, which are basically the eyes, I had the Arduino, which is like the brain, and I had the motors and a couple of other things. So basically all I did was I put those together and I whipped up a bit of code to run it. It's not working 100%, but there have been a lot of milestones that I'm going to talk about today. Also, one more thing before I jump into it, I did not realize that recording during the afternoon would be kind of this sort of bad lighting, so apologies for that. If it's really that bad, then I can switch to recording at night again, but I thought I would try out different times of day. Anyways, so you'll remember that last time I had a tutorial that I was basing all of this off of, but as it turns out, I had deviated so much from the components that it didn't work for me anymore. However, I still did use other tutorials, mainly for individual components. For example, there was one tutorial for the sensors, one tutorial for the motors, and all that, and I really just pieced them all together. So I'll be giving credit where credit's due, in the doobly-doo, of course. That said, there were a couple of major learning points. Primarily, we had breadboarding, motor drivers, batteries, and there was also some stuff with just piecing the whole system together. So those are going to be our talking points. Let's get started. First off, I suppose I should show you the completed system. Get ready for this, guys. Get ready, get ready. Look at that abomination. Look at this hideous monstrosity that I've made. Hey guys, I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
I'm terrible at designing things.
So yeah, so that was a complete mess. I might use some kits from here on out because this is a little bit unpleasant to look at and unpleasant to deal with. So breadboarding. This thing right here, this little white thingy, that is a breadboard. Use that to connect up circuits, essentially. So I did that. I got one of those and I was using it to connect up stuff. And I spent hours trying to put the wires in. And let me show you. So you have, your wire looks like this. It's really bendy. You try and put it in here and it's just like, because it's just so bendy, you can never get it really in there. And I spent like 3 hours on it. And I ended up messaging Matt. And I was like, Matt, why does this take so long? This is way too hard. How do like electronics people ever get anything done? Am I missing something? And Matt, in typical Matt fashion, was like, oh yeah, breadboard jumpers. I'm sorry, breadboard jumpers? Yeah, they're wires, but specifically for breadboards. What do you mean specifically for breadboards? They have little straight bits on the end so you can get them in without a fuss. Matthew, you couldn't have told me this before I spent 3 hours wiring that thing up. Did you ask me before you started? That concludes Matt's segment of today's episode. So if you're curious, this is what breadboard jumpers look like. Notice they have little straight bits there, so they can go straight into the breadboard. You learn things every day. Next up, we go to the motor driver. Motor driver is basically something that you use for the motors. You're probably wondering, well, with motors, what's the big deal? You hook it up, and it gets a signal from the Arduino that says go, and it goes. But the thing is that motors draw a lot of current. So if you hook them straight to the Arduino, it draws more current than is supposed to go through it, and it burns it out. And you don't want that happening. The motor driver is this little thing right here. So you basically put that into the breadboard, and it regulates the current so it stops you from burning out the Arduino. So you put the motor driver in here. It's the little black thing in the middle of the big mess of wires, if you can see it. and we have, it's tricky doing this, then you have the ultrasonic sensors, which are basically the eyes, which I've said like a bajillion times, but you have those in there, you hook it all up, and next you need the battery. So the battery is right there. So some sources will tell you that you need a separate battery for your Arduino and for your motor circuit. I just hooked it up to both of them, and nothing has gone wrong so far. Oh, by the way guys, nothing caught fire. That's partly why I was going so slowly this week, and that's why I haven't accomplished much, because I was so afraid of setting absolutely anything on fire. Not literally on fire, it would just probably burn out and have a bit of a burning smell, but I moved very slowly, and the good news is nothing's caught fire, so I'm really happy about that. So yeah, I hooked up the battery, and then when you turn it on, the thing runs. I wrote a bit of code that works. The problem is that I'm having difficulty testing it because of these stupid wheels. So what I did was, originally I thought that the wheel thing would be easy. I have these wheels from a kit, but the problem is they are way too thick for the spokes on these motors. It doesn't go on there. So I basically had to take out, if you look, there are these little, so there are little discs that come with the kit that look a little bit like this, but without the giant hole in the middle. It's actually a much smaller hole, but I use those, and the problem with it is that it's, the hole is still a little bit too loose for the spokes. So I had to put some electrical tape on these bits here to try and thicken it. But long story short, it's really wobbly. It kind of, what happens is that you run the motor, and sometimes it spins, sometimes it stays still, and I had to stop it before I burned something out. The other problem that's a little bit embarrassing is that in the tutorial, they basically said you attach the motors to the battery pack, and you just have two of them, and the thing's gonna work. It'll balance fine. But when I did it on my one, all right, you watching, guys? You watching? See how it's balancing? So the simple solution to the balance problem is, of course, to get another wheel and put it on the back, and then when it tilts, it rolls on it. Problem solved. But I don't go for the simple solution. My idea was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get a little plastic bag, and I'm gonna fill up that bag with metal bits. And what I'm gonna do after that is I'm gonna put it on the back, and I'm gonna use it as ballast, and I'm gonna try and make it balance like a physicist, because I just saw The Martian, and I'm smart that way. That didn't work. So I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, look at this stupid thing. It's just driving around, dragging this thing. It might as well be trying to clean the floor with that bag. Clean the floor. I can make a Roomba. If it's gonna be dragging its butt on the floor like that, why not put brushes on there? And it basically cleans the floor. All the Roomba does is it goes around in random patterns. Not exactly random. If you look it up online, there are algorithms for it, but it's something that you could probably code up. I think I could maybe code it up. So why not do that? So over the next week, I think I'm going to, once I get the proper wheels, I'll attach those things on I'll attach the brushes on the back, and we'll take it for a test and see what happens. Long story short, January's Cylon is almost done. I just need better wheels. That's basically it. However, I've started shopping for components for February's Cylon. First on the list is this. This is a Raspberry Pi. I actually bought this a couple of years back, and I'd loaned it to a friend, and I just got it back recently. So, SAP, thank you for that. A Raspberry Pi is essentially a computer. In fact, it is often referred to as the $35 computer because it costs $35. And basically, if you hook up a keyboard, a monitor, and all those things to it, it works the same way as the machine that you have at home. And essentially what this lets you do is it lets you code up your robot to have more intelligent behaviors, it lets you hook it up to the internet, it lets you do all these cool things with it. So that's a way that you can make your robot smarter and more interesting. So I'm definitely going to be using that. Now I actually already know exactly what I want to make for February, but it's a little too soon to give the game away. So I won't tell you what it is until I've gotten all the components or until I've finished January's Cylon. However, I will tell you this much. It is going to use a Raspberry Pi, a servo, this remote control, a camera, and some cardboard. So that's about all I have for today. I'll be back again next week with more updates and of course the answer to your burning question, what is February's Cylon? Until next time, friends.